In this video, I'm just going to show you where we're going to be keeping Revit files for you guys to use. Particularly for this is title blocks. So title blocks will be what we'll use for all of our sheets. So if you just click this Revit link at the top, it'll take you to Google Drive. It'll show up families, because a title block in Revit is a family. So you double click on the title families and then a subcategory title blocks. And there's two title blocks right now that I have as architectural D24 by 36 and an 8.5 by 11 sketch title block, and also the LBCC logo for the title block if you need that too. But it should download. If you just right click and download, it should have everything in the title block already when you download it. So if you just open a new project, or if you've already started a project, you can add this title block at any time. So I'm just going to open a new project, or start a new project at Imperial with the Imperial architectural template. Hit OK, and to import a title block, which for your assignments I want you to have, and for your final project though, you'll want to have all of your views and everything that you make on a title block. So to insert a title block, you can go to View and hit Sheet, and that will insert and create a sheet. If you just want to insert the title block, you go to Insert and then Load Family. Then you'll want to browse out to where you have the title block saved. When you load a family, this is going to open up the typical families that are associated, that are downloaded when you download Revit. And at the bottom here they have a folder for title blocks, so you can actually use all of the pre-made title blocks from Revit. I believe this one wasn't there. This one is the one that I made and based the title block that we're going to be using. So if you browse out to, after you download the title block, you can browse out to wherever you've stored it and then select it. Revit will create, similar to AutoCAD, temporary files, so you can have a backup. You can open up these files to see where they were saved at a certain point, so that you can get a backup if you have a file that's corrupted or want to go back and you've gotten too far and you want to kind of get back some information that you may have lost in changes and kind of start over. So here you just select the one without the number extension, the title block, and yours shouldn't have this unless you've opened it up and modified it. So you select that, hit open, and then now the title block is in your project. It didn't create it because we didn't go to View and Sheet, and then it would actually create a title block, which is another way you can create and add a sheet with a title block. All the families in the project are located on the project browser under this Families. You can scroll down and see all the different categories. Title blocks are actually located under annotation symbols. So if you hit the little plus, and you can see where the annotation for the title block is. So you could actually drag, actually it has to be a sheet, but you could drag families onto here, onto any view if it's the correct view, and if it's the correct kind of family. Like, you couldn't drag this keynote tag because a keynote tag needs something to select, because everything in Revit is tied to families or elements within Revit. So this is where the title block and all of your families will be located. And to create a sheet with the title block family, you go to View and Sheet, and see it has the title blocks that are loaded. This is the one that comes preloaded from AutoCAD, and this is the one that we just loaded. If you want to create a sheet and a title block at the same time, so you would go to Sheet and then Load, and let's pick this other title block family, and we can load in that at the same time. So now we're just going to create a new 8.5 by 11 vertical title block, a family with a sheet. So when you do that, it creates the sheet view, and it puts the title block family on here. It also added this category for sheets. So now we have a sheet, and it just automatically gives it a name, which you can either right click and rename, or hit F2 will bring up the rename, or you can actually click into the title block itself for any fields that are available. You can change here. So if you want to just call sheet 1 and sketch, you can name that all there, and you can see it updates it here and on the properties palette. This information, so that information is tied to this title block, and it's also tied to this sheet, which is the whole sheet, not just the title block. To add a view to this sheet is pretty easy in Revit. Basically, you just have to have a view, and then there actually doesn't have to be content on the view, but we'll just kind of add content to this level 1. And you just drag it on, from the project browser, you just drag it onto the sheet. As you can see, it automatically puts the view to the extents. To get rid of these, like if you didn't want all the elevation views showing up, you can just hit crop view inside of a view, crop region visible. And you can either drag and manually drag the grips on the crop view, and you can see the elevation tags disappeared, or you can double click and then you can actually modify it this way and add actually other jogs in the plan if you wanted. So if you wanted to crop out a view, you would just hit the line TR to trim, or you can go trim is up here to trim extend to corner. You can select those or hit TR. So if you had a view that you wanted, a large floor plan that you wanted to just show sections of, you could actually modify this by either double clicking, you can edit crop, and to reset it, you can just hit the reset button, and it'll make it back into a just the regular square. And then you can also give it dimensions as well. There's also an annotation crop, and an annotation crop will give you a second line. So if you had grids or annotations outside of here, then you could crop the view but actually still show any annotations that you had on the outside if you wanted. So you can turn those off and on here, and then to turn this crop box off, because we don't necessarily want to see it, usually you just uncheck crop region visible. You can also create commands for most of these things so that you can just turn them off and on without having to select them in here. And as a reminder, that is under View, User Interfaces, Keyboard Shortcuts. And for mine, it's KS is the keyboard shortcut. That might be default, but either way, you can find it under View and under User Interface. To go in and out of the views, you can right-click and deactivate View. And now you're outside of the view, and you can modify the title block. So it's similar to paper space and model space in CAD, if you're familiar with CAD. You can also just double click inside of there, and you'd also can add a shortcut keys for deactivating view and activating view, so you don't have to double click. You can, if you're very keyboard, if that's your preference is to keyboard shortcuts, then there's an option to be able to do that for most of the commands in Revit. So here, once we've got a title block and we have a view on it, there's different options for the viewport. So right now there's a viewport, and it came with the title, but because when we initially put it on the sheet, the crop view was very large, it makes the view all the way to the extents of whatever. It makes the title all the way to the extents of the view. So there's two ways to change this. So you can't just select the view, it'll select the title block, and if you try to move the title block, it'll move the view as well. You have to select the view separately. And interestingly, in AutoCAD or in Revit, there's so now you can move it, but you can't adjust it. So you kind of have to do a two-step process here. Adjust it, then select the view. Will actually allow you to select the grips, and you can drag it to whatever size you would like. So there's, just to recap, there's two ways to change these view titles for a view on a sheet. Select the view itself, and it will highlight, and you can adjust the size and length of the grips. You can also change the name of the view if you wanted. Now it's going to ask you when you try to change your view if you want to rename the corresponding level and views. So over here on the project browser, this is level 1. So if you picked yes, it should change the level 1 ceiling and the level 1 floor plans to level 1B. It will also change the elevation marker. And so Revit is all tied together, so if you wanted this just to say level 1, it's going to give you that name change, corresponding views pop up again. And if you were to hit no, it will leave your level 1 as level 1 on the elevation tag, but it'll leave your view named level 1B. So like if you had a large floor plan that you had to break up into sections, you can have the views named differently so that you could have multiple sections, and level 1 would still be called level 1 on your elevations, but it would be, you could break out the plans. It's just a way that Revit allows you to be able to kind of control multiple things at the same time. So if you wanted to have everything renamed to level 1 or level 0, or it could actually rename all of the associated views. Now I believe this is now no longer associated, because now we don't have a level 1 view. And there's more to this actually, because you can create more plans and views, and it uses that information. So we can create a level 1 and a level 2 floor plan again up here, or we can just duplicate the view by right clicking and hit duplicate. So we can create another level 1. It's going to give us another level 1 floor plan, and it's going to be associated to this level 1. So if I were to try to change this to level 1C, it's going to actually ask again, because now it's associated to this new level 1 that we created. But this is getting into more of the Revit stuff other than the title block, but this video is mainly for the title block, so that we can create a title block and show you how to put sheets on it. The title block that I have on the site should be the same one as this one and the other title block that we just we included in this sheet. So you can use these ones. To fill out the title block, there's going to be a number of ways to do this. So you can change the sheet, as we showed before, just by clicking into your project number, project name. You can change all of those things by just double click or clicking onto them. Once you have the title block selected, you can then click in and name those. If you go under your Manage tab, there will be project information. And here's another way that you can change that information. It's all drawing the information from here, and it's how they set up a title block family. There are things called parameters that we can create and add to and utilize when we're creating families that will read data from your model and autofill this information. And so as far as like this project name, we can actually change this information just from clicking in the in here and entering in the information, and it will actually change it in the project information dialog box just from changing in the text, and that's global. That will happen on all of your sheets. So this other sheet, we changed it and it says test project now. Like so, if we now change that to LBCC, it would change it on the other title block as well. So a lot of these parameters for project information are global, and you'd want them to be global because you don't want to change them on every sheet, unlike the project name and the sheet name. I'm sorry, that would be individual for the sheet and for the number. So on the title block, I also added some information so that you can enter this information for your project too. For owner, we could just say that the owner is Len Benton Community College. Let's do LBCC since that'll fit better in the, and we have that information there anyway. And then you also have some information that has to be changed within the family. So if you were using this project for your entire project, you'd want to enter in this information for the owner, the architect, and so on and so forth, like we see in our example. But in this one, if you could just modify the title block and put your student name and email, and I'll show you how to do that now. So in the title block for this specific 24 by 36, and if you want a bigger title block, let me know and I can create a larger one, but typically for home plans, the 24 by 36 is the standard size unless it's a really large home. So here you can say just double click or edit family up here at the top. It will bring you into the family, and you can see there's lots of different different things that show up in here that you can control. So up here I have a bunch of different groups that control the submittals type. So it'll put a submittal name up here in the top corner. As you can see, when we insert it, it's just preliminary right now. And if you were to select the title block and you were to edit the type, you can see there's all these different submittals. So if you were turning in your 50% your design development set, you would change and select the stamp design development checkbox, and it's going to put that in the title block. And that is basically, we have all of these. It's like a dynamic block, like all these are stacked on top of here, and I've controlled what how their visibility with some parameters in the family type. So basically I've given their visibility, assigned them to these different parameters, so when I turn this off and on, it will then turn off and on the visibility of these submittal stamps, as it were. And it was a little tangent. Let's show you how to change your name. So this is just text within this family. So because this information isn't going to change and is going to be the same on all sheets, you're going to want to just come in here and manually enter your information. And you would just change it to Jane Doe at Benton .edu. So now you've changed that. You could save this to where so once you have it imported into your project, you could save it, and it will save back to wherever you saved it. So you would save over it. But if you want to keep that as a template, and you don't want to always be changing this information and saving it back to and overwriting your template, you wouldn't need to do that. So for this, I'm not going to save it because I would want this information to stay blank. If I was using it for different projects, and this would be this information would change per project, but for your purposes, you could change this and then save it back to your folder. So I'm gonna save it just so that, I mean, this just says Jane Doe and the fake name, so it's gonna say, do you want to override? And you want to say yes. Then you can hit load into project up here at the top. It should be already under the modify tab. When you made a change to a family, it's going to ask, do you want to overwrite the existing version or overwrite the existing version and its parameters? If you had changed parameters in the family, you could overwrite all the parameters, but in a more complex family, this could cause all of your families to reset. So it's usually best just to overwrite the existing version. It keeps the existing, it changes the family without changing all of the parameters that are it's set to. So just overwrite the existing, so it keeps them all the same and just updates whatever you've changed. Unless you've changed parameters, then you would need to overwrite existing version and its parameters, which we're not going to do because we didn't change any parameters. So now revise the title block, and it says this information, and this would be global. So this would be if you have these parameters or this information on every sheet. So if we're to create a new sheet, it will be the same. It's just like a block in AutoCAD. It's been changed globally, so every time you've added it, you don't have to change this information every time. And this would be the project name, actually. So we would just call this house project. Some of this we can go into more, but I think for now that's enough. Anyway, as always, let me know if you have any questions, and I can help you get a title block set up if you even want to make more modifications or there's something that you'd like to add or revise.